Good morning and a happy Friday morning to everybody. We have a lot to cover in here. Not only do we have the working royals, we have the royals from Sweden. We have Dan Wooten. We're going to be covering a lot in here, okay? So let's just jump in and get there. There's so much. Let's go. We're going to start off this morning with Queen Camilla. We all know that she is the colonel of the Grenadier Guards, and she held a reception at Clarence House for former soldiers and their families. And this is her first time as an engagement as patron of the Colonel's Fund. Now, for those of you who don't know what that is, the Colonel's Fund is a fund that was established in 2007, and it helps soldiers with home improvements, employment training, mobility aids, counseling, that sort of thing. Camilla spoke at one point to a gentleman named Matt Elmer. He has the title of Retired Grenadier Guard Color Sergeant. And what he said was the key thing about giving help to others is for people to know that I'm here. I want to help get people back on their feet. Now, the person you're looking at above is Lance Corporal James Ashworth, and Camilla paid tribute to him and awarded him the Victoria Cross posthumously. He apparently was killed in action. Camilla actually spoke to the gentleman's parents, Dwayne and Carolyn Ashworth, who were there, and expressed to them how full of admiration she was, saying, and I'm quoting, "You must be so proud for somebody to be awarded the Victoria Cross is something else. It's unbelievable. I read his citation and couldn't believe it." Just FYI, this gentleman was killed in 2012 in Afghanistan while protecting his comrades. Now that is some bravery. I wonder if we have charities like that in the United States. Maybe we do, but I have never heard of them. And of course, a big thank you to Remoulade Sauce for showing us everything Camilla was wearing, including the bracelet engraved with her children's or grandchildren's names. Very nice. Moving on, Prince William held an investiture. It's his second time this year and the seventh for the entire year. Here he is making Mr. Javid a Knight Bachelor, and he gets this for recognizing his political and public service. Next up, Emilia Clarke from the Game of Thrones, you guys remember her, big star, and her mother, Jennifer Clarke, have been made members of the Order of the British Empire for founding an organization called Same You. This organization helps people who have had brain injuries and helps with their recovery. Apparently, Amelia had a stroke when she was 24 in 2011. I had absolutely no idea. Just as an FYI, this is apparently the very first mother-daughter duo to be honored with the same award on the same award honors list. I think that's wonderful. And the young lady Amelia said that's very sweet, but it's really all because of my mom. Love it. Moving on. Let's move on to Prince Edward the Duke. As usual, he had a multitude of things to do. So the first thing he did on this day was he went to London's hospital and he met volunteers working towards the Duke of Edinburgh Award. And while he was there, he helped prepare lunch and put it on a trolley and went out to help serve lunch to people who have, some of who have dementia. The volunteers on the ward help serve the food. They help support, some of these elderly people need help, cutting their food up, or they get a package, they can't open it. And they also help these people with technology. Like if they want to make a phone call, sometimes they can't even figure out how to use the telephone. Edward at one point sat down with the volunteers to talk to them about their experiences volunteering in the hospital and helping the patients. I think Edward looks so much like his dad, and maybe it's me, but he's looking like he might have put on just a little bit of weight, finally. All right, then he moved on to his next thing, which was to visit the Omnibus Theater in Clapham. Prince Edward has a lot of patronages that are all about the arts, because we know this was one of his big things when he was younger, right? He was in all the plays and acting and everything. And of course, while Edward was there, he met all the students and everybody that's involved in the plays, in the music, in the whole thing. Yeah, I just love this guy. While Edward was at the theater, he met the company of the current show on, that's going on there called 10 Nights. It is a Olivier, I hope I'm saying that right, award-nominated show. They performed the show for Edward, and just so you know, this is the story of one man's journey of self-discovery and facing the consequences of your actions. Ooh, that's, yeah, little prophetic there. Of course, before he left, he sat down and met with some of the people who run the theater, who help the kids, all of this stuff. So, yeah, I love this very much. Okay, let's move on now. For his last visit for the day, Prince Edward went to the Salomon Youth Centre in East London. This center is for young people to help improve their prospects for education and work and encourages them to engage with their community. And Edward got right in there and was playing table tennis. And he looked at a lot of the projects they had going on. Now, for those of you who are unaware, just in case you don't know, he is now considered one of the busiest members of the firm. Last year, he did 297 engagements that put him third, only behind King Charles and Princess Anne. You go, Edward. We know the day before that he was very busy, and he went to a group called Crisis Ox. And this works with people who have homelessness. And they discussed with Edward the impact that they're trying to have. You go, Edward. Oh, love it. All right, let's move on now to King Charles, who went back to work for the first time since his cancer diagnosis. He met Mr. Sunak when he arrived at Buckingham Palace for an audience on Wednesday. Lots of pictures being taken of the two of them. Oh, they both looked very relaxed. Now, King Charles did admit, and it was caught on camera, that the messages of support he received actually had him reduced to tears. How sweet is that? Now, earlier on in the day, he attended the meeting of the Privy Council, which is the, body of advisors that help the king. It's made up of senior politicians from the House of Commons and the House of Lords. I think he looks great. Now, Mr. Sunak did say to the king, "Wow, you look really well." And the king cracked a joke and said, "Yeah, it's all done with mirrors." And not long after that, Charles was seen leaving to go back to Clarence House. And then, of course, we know that he's doing the administrative stuff. We know this already. He's signing the documents. He's getting the red box. He's attending important meetings. But in between, he's got his cancer treatment. All right, let's move on. But sticking with Charles, these clickbait articles, King Charles secretly made a major change to a government website. Guys, he replaced Queen Elizabeth's crown with the rounded Tudor crown for his royal cipher, and it's on the key government websites because he's head of state. Okay, I don't see how that's a secret major change. Continuing on with King Charles, the new banknote that's got King Charles on it is going to enter circulation in Britain on June 5th. This is a year after they unveiled their new design. His portrait, King Charles's portrait, is going to be on the 5, 10, 20, and 50-pound banknotes, and they're going to be circulated along the, with the existing notes that have Queen Elizabeth on them. I think that's pretty cool. And the bank said that this approach was from guidance from the royal household because, they want to minimize financial impact and the environment. I think that's very nice. Moving on. Next up, we have the Duke and Duchess of Gloucester. They went to the Gloucester Cathedral where they listened to music and conversation. Apparently, the cathedral's historic organ was just refurbished, and they have music education there as well. That looks like an absolutely gorgeous cathedral, but to be fair, all the cathedrals in the UK are gorgeous. Moving on. Next up, we're moving on to a company called Earsass. They unveiled the quote-unquote Catherine earrings in honor of Princess Catherine's charitable influence. The earrings symbolize hope and support for mental health awareness. I think that's lovely, and she deserves it. Now, we all saw Catherine wearing these other earrings. They're called the Issy Star design. The star ones were given to her by a coach, Sarah Renton, whose daughter removed herself from this earth in 2023. Excuse me. The new earrings are supposed to be a symbol of Catherine's, and I'm quoting, resilience, her role as future queen, a mother, and a fashion icon whose influence transcends borders. I love that. All right, next up, this is not the UK royal family, but I wanted to throw this out here because I love them. Crown Princess Victoria and her husband, Prince Daniel, are in California. For those who don't know, Sweden and California are global leaders against climate change, and they renewed their climate partnership, which they're hoping will push both economies into a, good future. Next up, you know how I feel about free speech, so I just want to touch on this. We all know that Dan Wooten last October was placed under investigation because Byline Times did a dossier on him and turned it over. Now, when that came to light, Dan Wooten came out and said, listen, I've had some errors in judgment, but I've never done anything criminally wrong. So while all of this was going on, he got sacked, he got canceled, the media went absolutely nuts. I mean, it was just amazing. Anyway, guess what? After a 6-month investigation, he's been cleared of all charges. Now, you should know that Dan Wooten's attorneys have now sent a letter to this group, Byline Times, their editor, their journalists, telling them that they're going to be sued for damages and costs because apparently there was a Supreme Court ruling that privacy grounds were there for people under investigation and they're not supposed to be named until they're charged. But Byline Times instead threw Dan's name out there for political reasons, and now they're in trouble. Woo, Dan, I hope you sue them. I hope you ruin them. I mean, if you look at the dates on these articles, he was absolutely crucified in the media and canceled, even though it turns out that he was innocent. And if Byline Times hadn't put his name out, none of this would have happened. Absolutely, he's going to take them to the cleaners. This cancel culture is dangerous. When did the public become your judge and your jury? You know what I'm saying? Unless you can prove something is wrong. This is criminal charges. I'm not just talking about your reputation. He was canceled. You go, Dan. All right. Now, this is going to be really short when it comes to Harry and Meghan. They are out of the spotlight, although they took over the entire Invictus thing. You guys heard nothing about the veterans, nothing about their families. It was all about Harry and Meghan, what they were wearing. Notice Harry was only wearing Eddie Bauer clothes. He probably got some sort of a deal with them. But you heard nothing about Invictus, right? So now they're putting out stories. Meghan's subtle hair color. Meghan's friend Meeson Harriman is releasing a brand new photo from back when she was a working royal. This is not a brand new photo. We've seen this photo from Meeson Harriman before. Then they put this out. Oh, Harry and Meghan are sharing an unseen photo from the Canada visit, and it's filled our hearts. You guys, they're trying to stay relevant. They're trying to stay in the press. But what really hurts me when I look back on all of this is nobody talked about Invictus or the athletes. It was the Harry and Meghan pony show. Moving on, I told you that everything Meghan does is self-serving. This is a perfect example. Remember when she went to cook with the Afghan women that had been displaced? They were all wearing head coverings and sleeves, and she was sleeveless and an apron that said Archwell on it. Yeah, they're merching the apron now. It's great. It's stain resistant. It's $90. Or you could go to my line of products. You guys have all seen that, and I have an apron. Variety of different colors, different color stitching. I happen to like this black one with the gold. Total cost for my apron, $27. If for whatever reason you don't want one with the Sue Smith logo on it, you could get one with my tagline on it. You could get 4 of mine for what they want for just one of theirs. Moving on. All right, really quick before we discuss our last thing, a blind item came out that basically Meghan wanted Disney to shut down and allow her and her children in privately, and she was told no. Yep, moving on. All right, here we go. Now, as you're watching this on Friday, the court is taking place over Harry's immigration records because the Department of Homeland Security does not want to release Harry's records to see, so that we can see if he lied about using drugs. Remember, anybody applying for a visa to live and work in America has to answer yes or no to the question, are you or have you ever been a drug abuser or an addict? The problem is if he says no, we now know he lied because he admitted in the spare that on a daily basis he uses marijuana, cocaine, magic mushrooms, etc. If he answered yes, then people want to know why he was allowed into the United States when other people admitted to using drugs once 10 years earlier and they were denied entry. So if he also admitted to the drug use, then he would have needed a waiver to get in to the United States. And now they're asking who gave the waiver. There's also some discussion that maybe he came over on a diplomatic visa, which he's actually not supposed to have because he no longer represents the royal family. He's not a working member of the royal family. We all saw the interview where he's thinking about becoming an American citizen. The problem is, to become an American citizen, you can't be a drug addict. And quite frankly, he could be thrown out of the country. People are going to be screaming for his removal. It'll be interesting to see what happens. We'll keep an eye on it. I want to say before I go, a big thank you. We're almost at 800 Patreon members. I love it. If you want to join, the link is in the description box. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget to leave those comments. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell. If you've already done that, double check. Make sure you're still subscribed. If you've donated to my coffee fund, thank you so much. Don't forget, down in the links, you'll find links to the Patreon as well as my father's book. And as always, you guys, have a great day.